Now that Malfeasance, the exotic hand cannon, has been released upon the world, and we'll do a video on that later, a lot of you are going to be playing Gambit. Some of you are good at Gambit. Some of you, I'll put it this way, could use some assistance. In today's video, I want to go over some gameplay tips on how to improve your Gambit skills or your Gambit awareness. Most of this is going to be for those in solo queue or maybe duo queue. Those in a full 4-stack probably already know what you're doing, but, you know, maybe this helps you too. Who knows? I would say that the number one wrong thing I see people doing is going for 15 motes when it's either not necessary or just really, really bad timing. Now, don't get me wrong. A well-timed or well-coordinated 15 drop can be very obnoxious for the other team, especially when it's solos versus solos. But I see far too many people with a complete lack of awareness trying to go for 15 motes just because they want to drop a big guy on the other team. Spoilers, it dies to a melting point and 2 shotgun shots. It's not that hard to kill on its own anyway. You need to be able to read the game state and plan accordingly. You will be much more effective as a solo player who drops in 5 or 10 motes than someone who is constantly trying to go for 15 and dying to an invader, or worse, PvE. It's also okay to deposit 8 motes or 11 motes if the amount of time it'll take to bank them means that you won't miss your chance to actually bank them, specifically for invasion timings. If you go for those extra motes, but then the enemy banks first and invades you, you can potentially lose everything. If you have 9 and your team has 16 banked, it's okay to miss out on that medium if it means you can beat the enemy to an invasion. There's no real way to know how far along the enemy team is in terms of physically putting motes into the bank. You don't know where the entire enemy team is on the field. You just need to be faster than they end up being. As a whole, you can tell if they're in the middle of killing ads, though, if their white bar is moving up somewhat quickly. If the white bar is not moving, then they are likely in transition to another zone or to deposit. However, you don't just want to constantly go for small amounts either. Grabbing 5 and then running back every time, again, unless coordinated ahead of time, will leave your team vulnerable to the PvE part of the game, especially in the mid-game when there are invaders showing up. This means ads are dying slower, which means your next wave isn't spawning as quickly, which means you might start falling behind. A new ad wave will only start to spawn after all the enemies are dead, except for maybe 1. Sure, a taken phalanx is annoying, but they're not super hard to kill by themselves. I actually think the knights are the most annoying in terms of consistency, but phalanx do have the capability to just insta-kill someone if that person gets shield bashed the wrong way. Also, be aware of who has motes around you. If you just reached a mote threshold, 5 or 10, let other people pick up the motes around you. You're a lot better off with a 7 and a 5 as opposed to an 8 and a 4. People really like picking up motes in Gambit, and I will frequently just stay in the back killing ads, picking up nothing to ensure that at least 3 people get 5 motes. Spreading motes too thin too early is bad because you want your first wave of motes to send a decent amount of stuff to the enemy. At least 2 smalls or a medium and a small would be nice. Next, always be watching the scoreboard to get a feel for when invasions will happen. If your team has banked 17 motes and the enemy team has 0, but both of your white bars are the same length, that means if you don't drop another 5 motes at the least, they are going to drop a lot on your team at once, invade you, and then slow you down. The opposite also applies. If you're getting sent a ton of stuff, you need to make a big clear of everything in the middle and slam in 25 motes so you can get that first invasion. The start of a match will often set the pace for the rest of it. The white bars tend to matter a bit more than the total banked because there's not a whole lot you can do about motes already in the bank. If the enemy team has a small white bar, maybe hold off on that invasion for a few seconds to bait them into getting some more motes and getting out of position. Invading when the enemy team has nothing will slow them down a little bit, but it won't waste their time completely. Speaking of invaders, they are not invincible. Yes, you might find Sleeper annoying, but you can bait those people and you can kill them. You should constantly be looking at the scoreboard to check the status of an invasion. If your team is holding on to a lot of motes and the enemy team just banked, you can bet that they are coming with an invasion. Use this timing to your advantage and spread yourself to another part of the map. The invader typically does not spawn on the same side where PvE is happening. The game will try to put them far away. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen an invader spawn on the same side that PvE is happening. So you know they're not going to spawn there, meaning that there are only 2 places where they will be spawning in. If PvE is happening on the right side, move to an area where you can look at both mid and left at the same time. Now, it is harder to do this on some maps compared to others, but you should almost never be caught off guard by an invader timing while you're building up motes. Realize that an invader is coming and get to cover. If your bank is open or if you're able to quickly drop in your motes before the invader has a chance to do anything, then go for it. Otherwise, it's better to try to fight or at the very least run away behind cover. The majority of invaders that I fight will plant themselves with Sleeper and just keep firing, not moving. Use this to your advantage. Bait their shots, keep trying to move back and forth to bait them into shooting you, and hopefully someone else from your team will come along and get them from the other side. Try not to fully peek unless they actually take a shot at you, because they will be pre-firing you. You want to bait that shot, then peek out for some damage. If they're not using some form of a long-range power or energy weapon, then you need to play things a little differently, but making sure your positioning is good should be priority number 1. Next up, don't be afraid to use your super in PvE to catch up or get ahead. With things like Sleeper currently dominating the invasion side of the game, supers are not as important for invading, although they're still good. If Sleeper is ever nerfed to where it doesn't one-shot headshot someone in a super, this will probably change. And I will just say right now, if you think Sleeper is bad, there are a couple of other weapons that may be even worse. If you have a super and a good opportunity to kill a lot of ads, you should probably just do it, especially if you haven't been invading. Every second you aren't using your super is another second that you could be building towards another. If you can chain supers with your team, your ability to clear ads just goes through the roof. And a lot of the time you can generate a minimum of 4 orbs, which, if they're big orbs for your team, will fill a large chunk of super meter. If you're running tether, then you can very easily get to the point where you tether almost every wave. If you're starting to get close to the Primeval, maybe save it for something that I'm going to talk about soon. Let's give an example. In this clip, my teammate pops Arc Strider at the start of the round. Always let the super do all of the killing so that they can generate orbs. They're going to kill everything in the area anyway, and this frees up your time to go collect motes or maybe move into position for the next wave. My team now has an overall mote lead, and I plant the first blocker. The enemy team realizes that we're ahead and tries to overcompensate by burning all of their motes with nothing in reserves. They have no white bar. This means that at a minimum, they need to traverse to the other side of the map, kill some dudes, get 5 motes, and then run back and bank before we do anything else, while we're already ahead. However, this is where greed can become a problem. Instead of going to bank their motes, this player who has 14 wants to get a 15th for a large guy. This was the wrong play. Due to this delay of banking, the enemy team was able to collect enough motes to get them over 25, allowing them to invade first. Not only this, but the guy with 15 motes goes to directly attack the invader on their own. They are fortunate that they get the kill, because if they didn't, we would have been set really far back. This invasion also delays our next spawn wave because everyone gets scared, plays passive, and doesn't kill any enemies, allowing the enemy team to potentially invade us again back to back had they been fast enough. If the guy with 14 banked those motes, we could have invaded first and maybe gotten a lead. However, even though it worked out in the long run, it is still not a play I would normally recommend. The enemy team pulls ahead after we had a lead, but when we get our invasion, our invader cleans up 19 of their motes, putting us back in the lead. You can't count on these things happening, though. If the guy with 15 motes dies, that's a setback. If our invader dies right away, that's a setback. In the wise words of Artosis, when you are ahead, get more ahead. When you're winning, win more. Next, listen to the Drifter. If he says you can summon a Primeval, odds are that you need to drop everything that you're doing and just bank your stuff. The only time I think it's acceptable to delay the drop of a Primeval with regards to motes is if you can hit the next tier within a couple of seconds of the call out. Otherwise, just drop those motes in right away. Do not wait for the next wave to spawn. Do not run around looking for enemies. Just bank your motes, especially if you're the first to summon, because the catch-up mechanic is going to beat you into the ground much more than an ogre is going to mess up the enemy team. With regards to the Primeval boss, focus wizards first and do not use big cooldowns on the boss right away. The main boss is very strong when it first spawns, and supers will not do a lot of damage. Use your supers to shred the wizards away instantly, because they hurt way more than the boss itself does. Also, be aware of the other enemies that spawn in during the waves. You'll likely have some form of sniper or acolyte or thrall coming with the boss wave, and combined with an invader can really hurt. Take a couple of seconds during this intro to kill them and get them out of the way. As for killing the boss, you don't need to wait until 6 or 7 stacks. With a team that has some idea of what they're doing, even as a stack of randoms, you can shred the boss with only 2 or 3 stacks. See this clip here. A warlock drops their Well of Radiance on the boss, which is the international sign for it's time to nuke the ever-loving crap out of this boss right now, especially considering that there are no other adds left on the field. If done correctly, you can burn the boss as the enemy invader is entering your side of the field. In terms of build and loadout, it really depends on what you want to be doing. It is very difficult, if not outright impossible, to solo carry in Gambit. You can go all in on an invader build, sleeper, sniper, pulse rifle, but then your enemy killing potential is maybe not as high. You can go all in on a Slayer build, hand cannon, shotgun, tractor, whisper, or maybe something like a Risk Runner or Skullfort Striker Titan, but that leaves you vulnerable to the PvP side. One-Eyed Mask is a great PvP item, but Hallowfire Heart is a great PvE item. It's all about what you excel at. Again, you're not going to be able to solo carry. There are simply too many roles in Gambit for you to do them all at once. This is not regular PvP. So you can try to spread yourself to everywhere, or you can try and focus on one thing specifically. As for bows, stop. Stop using them. Stop it. Do not use a bow. 99% of people should not be using a bow in Gambit. I don't care if it's your highest level item. I don't care if you got the most kills that one time. Don't use a bow. Right now, pulse rifles are really strong all around, PvE and PvP. They can contest at most ranges, and best of all, can compete with a sleeper at most ranges. If you're solo, you're probably thinking that you need to do a little bit of everything, and a pulse rifle is definitely going to help you, at least while they're really strong. Find a pulse rifle, find a good one, masterwork it if you can, and use it. Anyway, those are all of my tips on Gambit. If you have your own tips, drop them in the comments. Good luck on your Malfeasance quest hunt. If you enjoyed this video, a positive rating is appreciated. Thanks for watching. How many more commas will there be in this sentence? Only one more. I'll see you next time.